It's pretty exciting because the needle's always moving. There's no stagnation there. So it draws you in. You want to stay. Like when you feel like you're actually making progress and the things that you're doing are actually making a difference, it's pretty easy to stay involved.
Welcome to the Weld Together podcast by United Way of Weld County, where we share stories about what's possible when people in a community come together for good. I'm your host, Diana Smith, and today I'm talking with someone who knows a lot about community. Clint Dudley is the chair of the board of directors for United Way of Weld County. Good morning, Clint. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
One thing that we like to ask is what's in your cup at the moment? Do you have a beverage with you or a favorite beverage?
I don't know that it's my favorite beverage, but I do have a habit of having a cup of coffee in the morning, maybe half a cup. Like I'm not a full cup of coffee guy, but I have a human being cup on my desk right here next to me. So French roast.
Now, I think you're the first person I've talked to that says half a cup of coffee, though. Is there a reason that you only do half a cup?
Yeah, the caffeine. Whew, I get pretty hyped up on caffeine, so that's about my limit for the day.
That's a good balance to the rest of us who are drinking it all day long.
Yeah.
Clint, I'm curious, how long have you lived in Weld County?
I've lived in Weld County since 1998. I'm a Hoosier. I was born in Indiana. I grew up in Boulder County, up in the mountains, but I moved up to Greeley to attend UNC in 1998.
So then were you pretty young when you came to Colorado?
Yeah, I think I was 10. I remember it pretty well. We came on vacation to Colorado prior just to check out some different areas that we might want to live. And I remember that vacation very well. Oddly, I think I was excited. Colorado is beautiful, but you would just think as a little kid that you would be maybe a little bit intimidated by the move. But I just remember how excited we were to move here.
So you went to UNC then for
Yes.
school. And what did you study at UNC?
I initially studied geography and economics. And I don't know where this came from, but I just had this vision that I was going to work in the oil field in Russia. I have no idea where that came from or where that desire is. But all through college, I worked full time in the Parks and Rec field. And my boss, he was super intelligent and motivated. And by the time I got through 3 years of working for him and going to school, I thought maybe there's something, if he could choose to do anything in the world that he wanted to do, there's got to be something to this Parks and Rec thing. So my last year, ended up taking another year and a half. I switched to government and took some government and Parks and Rec classes. And that's what I ended up finishing my degree in.
Interesting. Was there anything in particular that you really enjoyed about that work, even back then?
I think the diversity of what you get to do in a day. And I still work in a relatively small organization. I don't get the same diversity that I did back then, but you could be working in a beautiful park in the morning and you could be helping coach a baseball team in the evening, or you could be setting up for a yoga class, and I just found that very interesting.
You're involved in so many different and diverse things and with so many different people too, I would imagine.
Yes. Yeah. And truly, it's a heart for service. If you're in Parks and Rec, you are there to serve people. And I found that attractive. I like that.
Can you give us just like a glimpse into a day in the life of a Parks and Rec person?
Yeah. So anymore, mine's relatively boring. Being an executive director, I do a lot of finance and HR and project management, but we're still on the medium size. I know just even a couple of weeks ago, one of my staff called and they were having some issues with the mechanical system at the pool, and I got to go visit the pool and work that out. So that was fun. And very occasionally I will sneak out when nobody's here and hop on a mower and mow a small patch. They don't usually like me to do that, but I do. I'm the boss, so I do that occasionally. But a lot of my staff, some of the other staff here, it is just like I described when I first started out. It may be that they're out setting up for a special event at one time, coaching a team at another time. We do a lot of special events at the schools and in the schools, anything and everything. And I think that's interesting, and that energy is attractive to a lot of young people.
So you're the executive director at Thompson Rivers Parks and Recreation District.
That's correct. Yep. About 14 years.
So you must really love that work.
Oh, yes. I love every single day. I love coming to work. Yeah, for sure.
I can hear some voices in the background.
Can you hear them?
I mean, it's perfect. It's great. It's very atmospheric to our conversation.
So it's funny. I have to describe like the scenario. So my office is in a community center, one of our facilities, and I'm all the way at the end of the hall. And they put me all the way at the end of the hall. They joke because I'm the first person to say yes to anything. So they put me at the end of the hall, so they have to go through 6 no's before they get to me. But because I'm at the end of the hall, right outside my window there's an outdoor breakfast area. And we have our day camp is out there having breakfast right now. So there's 30 kids like outside my window having breakfast. But my window is like a two-way window. So I can see all of them, but they can't see me. So they're like making faces and they think is a mirror, but it's my office window. And they do it every morning. It's like my favorite part. They're out there having their Cheerios right now, making faces in the window, but I can see them.
That is the best.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean that is a pretty great work environment there.
Yeah.
You know, we talk a lot about this general consensus that Weld County is really a unique place. It's a community that is really unlike no other. And I'm curious if you feel that way. And if you don't, we can edit it out. No, I'm joking. Joking. I'm curious, how would you describe the experience of living in Weld County yourself?
Yes. So when I moved here in 1998, not that I had intentions of doing anything in life, I had no idea what I wanted to do in life, but I truly didn't envision that it would be in Weld County. I thought I was just coming here. I probably didn't even know that I lived in Weld County in 1998. I was a college kid, but I went to UNC, and like I said, really, I grew up as a mountain kid, and I really didn't envision staying here. And by the time I graduated, one, I probably couldn't have afforded to live up in the mountains, but I truly appreciated that uniqueness. And we had it then too. It hasn't changed a lot. And I think it just has that super cool blend of old school, small town ag with the vibe and the energy of a growing community. Like it completely does. And they found that, they struck that balance. And what's cool is from 1998 to now, they haven't lost it, even with as much as they've grown. And I think that goes a lot to some of the longtime residents that still hold on to some of those cool traditions, but then we still have that infusion of new energy. So no, it's the perfect blend of new and exciting and tradition all wrapped up into one. And that's hard. That's hard to do. That's definitely hard to do.
It is. It's a really unique mix for any, I think for any community, but especially Weld County is such a large county. I mean, it's over 4,000 square miles. That is remarkable that it can still have that kind of culture and that kind of small community feel to it.
Yeah. And it is huge. Can you imagine if you were in Grover to fathom that Firestone, which is almost a metro area community, you're in the same county?
Yes.
But somehow it's still blended. It's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really special. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved with United Way of Weld County. How did that first start for you?
Yeah. So my first exposure to United Way was, I don't know, 23, 24, 25 years ago. I worked as a rec coordinator in Fort Lupton. And we had the Rural Rec Scholarship Fund. So United Way, even all the way back then, was donating money to local parks and rec departments so that they could fund kids that couldn't afford it to play sports. And I didn't have a big exposure growing up in a relatively affluent community to people that couldn't even afford to play sports. So when I started in Fort Lupton, that was an eye opener for me. That was even a need, but that it was met was crazy. That was awesome. And then I've been exposed to that scholarship program for all the communities I've worked in for the last 25 years. So that was my first experience. But then about 10 years ago or so, as a result of being involved in that program, they asked me to serve on an investment committee where we're grading and reviewing grants and nonprofits on their performance so that we could help them out with funding. So I had been doing that for quite a while as well before being on the board.
So you were volunteering with United Way for a time, and then you joined the board from there.
Yeah. So I think I'd been volunteering, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years prior to being on the board.
That's incredible, isn't it? I think there's so many people that will begin to volunteer with United Way and they tend to stay. A lot of folks just keep volunteering.
It's pretty exciting because the needle's always moving. There's no stagnation there. So it draws you in. You want to stay. Like when you feel like you're actually making progress and the things that you're doing are actually making a difference, it's pretty easy to stay involved.
What were some of the things that kept you going over those years that you were volunteering?
So the most exciting thing, and it's actually just now coming to fruition, was when we shifted from that kind of community impact model where we were just pushing the money out to individual nonprofits. And then we were starting to make that shift to collective impact. Something really clicked for me. I really found that exciting. And that was 5, 6 years ago when we started that shift. But I really could see that's how we were making a difference before, but I could see that's how we were truly going to start to actually solve some problems. So that really kept me involved. I felt like before we were really talking about mitigating issues and mitigating problems by pushing funding out, but collective impact was really shifting to what is our eye on actually solving these problems. And that just makes much more sense to, I think, most people.
Yes, and I think that's a really important nuance to the work that United Way does. All of the work that United Way is doing is really geared towards solving the problems, not just managing the problems. We talk about it so often, sometimes it's easy to miss that nuance, but it's a
Yeah.
real game changer, isn't it?
Yeah, because we hope that someday we're not doing that anymore and we get to move on and do something else. Whatever that issue is, whatever those 2 or 3 issues are, let's solve those. And then there'll be plenty of other things for us to move on to.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's more to do.
The Weld Together podcast is brought to you by United Way of Weld County, building powerful partnerships to bring about lasting community-wide change. Learn more at www.unitedway-weld.org.
What made you decide to come on board as a board member?
I've been asked this question a couple different times. It hadn't even crossed my mind that they would even be interested in having my input on the board. So when they asked me, I was just absolutely floored. It was Janine, the old executive director, and then Julie Kozad, a longtime Weld County resident, who just one day took me to coffee and asked me. And it came out of left field. I was definitely humbled for sure. It was cool.
Yeah. What made that appealing to you to be on the board?
On a personal level, sitting at the table with so many accomplished, motivated people was amazing for me. Like the growth that I had, especially that first year or two, most of it was just about listening and understanding and seeing where they're coming from and seeing how they're adding value to the organization and to their own organizations as well. So on a personal level, that was awesome. Moving on from that and learning from that experience, I do have my own unique perspective that I can bring. One, just the field that I work in, local government and parks and recreation. We serve a lot of the people the United Way is interested in serving. So I can bring that to the table. But then also, like I said, that I've been working with this collective impact initiative for the last 5 or 6 years, longer than most people on the board too. So I think I have a pretty good handle on that. So I think that's the one thing that I like working in on the board.
And it's very exciting that you have been elected as the board chair for United Way of Weld County. Yes, congratulations.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, that's it. That's very exciting. I think I look forward to the next 2 years for sure.
I don't know that unless you're part of a board of directors or you're inside of a nonprofit organization, I think a lot of us wonder, what is it? What is the board doing behind the scenes? What is the work that's going on there? Could you tell us a little bit about what is the role of a board chair as opposed to a board member? Can you give us a picture of what's involved with that role?
I've only been doing it for a couple months, but I'll tell you, evidently it means doing more things like this, because this is the second time in 2 weeks I've talked to people on the radio. And it's funny because I have an absolute fear of public speaking and speaking on the radio. And so this
really?
evidently
gosh, you're doing great. Yeah.
I'm slowly getting over it. You would think at 45, I would have conquered that fear. I haven't, but evidently but truly, yes, being a voice for the board, I think that's an important part. And I think they only elect people that they're chairs that understand what that voice is. And I don't know if you had the pleasure of talking to Angel, but he absolutely understood what that voice needed to be for the board. And he was very good at communicating that to the public. And I think that just being the face and a voice for the board is probably the most important one. But also there's a lot of work that needs to take place outside the board meetings. It's counseling staff and making some lower level decisions that don't necessarily need to go all the way to the board. I'd say that's one of the larger things we do as well.
And so when you now look ahead from your position as the chair of the board, and all of United Way's decisions are based on the community, what the community is asking for, what the community is reporting that they need. But as you look out on this next chapter for United Way, what are you excited about? What would be your dream?
So my dream is, and I think what our responsibility as a board is for the next 2 years, is we've adopted this collective impact model as we're all in. We've been doing some collective impact before, but this is the thing that we are going to do, moving slowly away from direct services into this model. So I think, one, I'm excited about telling that story to the community. Collective impact in itself is a relatively simple thing, but a vast majority of people you come across don't know what that is. So they need to be
Yes.
educated on it. United Way has done a great job of getting their name out there. Our brand is well known in the community and loved, but what does that mean? What are the things that United Way does? And the things that we did are not necessarily the things that we're going to do in the future. So communicating that in a way that in the next 2 years that the entire community understands this is what collective impact is and this is what United Way is doing. That's the thing I think I'm the most excited about. The thing that I'm excited about, but definitely is a struggle, is so moving into this collective impact model means that there's things that we can't do. And you talked about that United Way has always been really good about meeting the needs of the community. In the past, we've been really good about being a gap filler. If there's a need in the community that's unmet, we're figuring out how to do that, and sometimes relatively quickly and rapidly. And we've been really good at that. But that gets us to that model where we're patching things up rather than solving anything. So I think over the next 2 years, I think just having the resolve to say, even when some of those difficult issues come up that maybe we think that we could help with, that we're like, no, we have a plan. If we really want to truly get deep and solve a problem, we need to stick to it and move in that direction. And I think creating an organization and guiding a board to support staff in that model will be the hardest part, but the most rewarding part too. And I think if you do that for at least 2 years, then it will become second nature that, no, it's not in the plan. That's not what we're doing. We're going to solve this problem. That's exciting, but also relatively difficult.
It's a huge endeavor, isn't it? To, again, as we were saying, the nuance between managing problems and solving problems semantically. In words, it's a very small change, but in reality, it's a massive shift in focus and in procedures.
Yes.
So how would you describe, for folks who don't know, the difference between what United Way has been doing and what is collective impact? When we talk about collective impact, how would you describe the difference?
Yeah, so I'll just give an example of how we were before. One is we were pretty shotgun. So we have the overnight shelter and the navigation center there in Greeley that we operate. That's definitely a direct service. And then we have the other community investment component, which was a little bit of collective impact, where we're talking to local nonprofits in specific initiative areas and seeing what their funding needs are. And then we're funding those specific needs. So we've been doing it that way the last 10 years I've been involved, basically. But the shift to collective impact means, one is we'll likely be handing over operations of the overnight shelter and the navigation center to an organization that's what they do. If they're going to solve a problem, they're going to be focused on that one thing. So moving that direct service to another qualified organization, so then we can focus on that collective impact part. And what's going to be different about the collective impact part from the way we were doing it before is we're going to be the conveners and the backbone of the issue. And we're going to be bringing all of those nonprofits together around the table. And one, we're going to be making sure that we're not duplicating services, but we're also going to be making sure that the services that one organization is providing is elevating or complementing the ones that the other organizations are solving, so that we know that we can reach that end goal of actually solving the problem, being more efficient and more impactful with our funds.
So that's a really interesting distinction that you just made that I would like to dig into a little bit more, because when you say direct service, that means that United Way has been employing those people, right, to do the work on the ground directly in the issue and with the need on the ground, which is great. But then United Way has also been galvanizing and rallying partner organizations together, as you say, to solve the problems as well. And so that can make it tricky behind the scenes, can't it, in an organization that has to both provide the services as well as serve as the hub of a community that's coming together to solve issues.
Completely. That's like you're running two completely different businesses. And it's not that we haven't been successful, but it's hard to really accomplish your end goal if you were doing that. If all of your resources are split between 2 or 3 different areas, yes, that's difficult.
It can put a strain on an organization. And so United Way is going to be stepping into this role of rallying. We've talked before in the newsletter and in the podcast about that word collaboration, which is only like a sliver of what collective impact is really talking about, isn't it? Can you tell us a little bit more about the difference between collective impact and collaboration?
Yeah, so collective impact is more like a strategic plan where there's step by step of we're going to do A, B, C to reach D. It's very defined. Also, there's not a lot of teeth in it. If we're just collaborating, you're doing your thing and we're going to talk together, we're going to do that thing. There's not a lot of teeth in it. And through the collective impact process, there's going to be a little bit of accountability to make sure that all the organizations are doing the things that they say that they're going to do. Mm-hmm. Now, United Way is going to provide some funding to do this, but it's unlikely that United Way will ever be the top funder, even in our county. There's some relatively well-funded nonprofits, but we can be the people that, help those nonprofit organizations obtain other funding, but also, again, just hold each other accountable so that we're making sure we're moving the needle in the right direction.
I also like what you had said earlier, too, about making sure that no two organizations are actually overlapping and doing the same thing, that everyone's resources are actually spread out across the needs and nobody's duplicating efforts or maybe putting their efforts or resources in the incorrect places.
Yeah, and it could be as simple as they're providing the same service, but maybe it's to a different segment of the population, or it doesn't mean nonprofits just need to completely change the thing that they're doing, but we just need to make sure that we're all align our resources in the most efficient way.
And that's going to be an enormous task to coordinate all of those different partner organizations working together.
Yeah, and I like the word coordinate because I don't want to make it seem like United Way's a bully and telling everybody this is the thing that we're going to do. Our job is to coordinate and bring everybody together, and they're going to be the ones that are coming up with the solutions. We're just going to help them make it streamlined and efficient and help with measurements and share data and things like that. But this is absolutely going to be a product of what these nonprofits come up with together. Again, we're just the conveners and the backbone.
Yes, I love that phrase, the backbone, because it's holding all of these different vertebrae together, but there's still a lot of movement. It's not rigid.
Yeah.
It's the body working together.
Yeah. I said it several times, so I don't want to just sound like I'm just a broken record and repeating it, but I see the needs every day, whether that be working in local government or even just eating downtown or going to school events with my kids. I see the needs of others in our community. They're real. It's not just something that I see on TV or read in the newspaper. And I also see that there is a path to solving the needs for many people in our organization. And United Way is a tool I absolutely believe that can do that. And again, like I said, I hate to just keep repeating myself, but that is exactly why myself and so many people are involved in United Way. And it's why people donate their money to United Way, because they believe in that cause as well. That truly, in the end, we will have a meaningful, noticeable, measurable impact.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a story or an experience of having seen the real impact yourself in a particular program or a particular need?
Yeah, I think I'm a little biased just because of the career that I'm in, and also because I served on the Thrive by 25 portion of the collective impact prior to being on the board. But the Rural Rec scholarships, I remember working in a different organization well over a decade ago and had a gentleman come to my office. He had coached for me for several years in our organization, and he had lost his job in the oil field, and they were unable to pay for their kids to participate in activities. And he didn't want to go home and tell his kids that. He didn't want to say, hey, you can't. I don't recall what activity they were trying to register for, and that those funds we had the flexibility to use those funds to get his kids to participate. And it saved that dad in the moment, but what it also did is it got him through, and then he continued to volunteer for our organization for years in the future. So we were investing in him, and he returned that investment. And I think that's cool. I think in all initiative areas that you're seeing, if you can invest in people, get them in housing or teaching kids to read when they're young, they're going to reinvest in our community. So that I find attractive for sure.
And that's tremendous work too, around the Thrive by 25 work to get youth, not just kids, but youth and young adults, to give them real grounding and real footing and support as they're going through that time of transition of just life. Right? That's a huge age of transition, and to have those sports options available, and just how remarkable.
And so the 35 by 25, where our focus had been the last few years, was connecting youth to caring adults. And I think most people know that just all demographics and all ages, we're having that issue with loneliness, whether that could be middle-aged adults or seniors or youth. And if we can start with youth and we can get them connected to that caring adult, it could be a teacher, a coach, a youth pastor, a mentor, any of those things, it's going to be easier for them to make those connections through life. They'll have that mentor, they'll have those relationship skills. So if we can really start when they're young and connecting them to caring people, I think we'll see a difference in decades to come with that loneliness. I think we can help with that.
Actually giving them a blueprint for creating relationships that they'll take throughout the rest of their lives.
Yes, for sure.
Is there anything that you feel like everyone needs to know about United Way of Weld County?
I think just the things that we talked about, the shift to collective impact, to really understand that this is more than just words. We are going to make a big impact in the community, and we need the community to completely support us and be on board. We want them to be our cheerleaders, our funders, our advocates, ambassadors, sharing our story, doing the work. And it's important that from Grover to Firestone, that we have all of those people on board and they understand our message so that we can be the conveners and we can bring all of those together. Really, that community-wide, they understand the importance of the work that we're doing.
It really is going to be a team effort on this one.
Yes.
So one last question for you, Clint. With all of this work that you're involved in, and as a parent, as a community member, as a leader, now as the board chair at United Way, what fills your cup? What helps you to keep going?
Any way that I can serve others keeps me going. And there's obviously only 24 hours in a day. So I think I've learned in life to find the ways that I can most effectively use my talents to serve others. But any way that I can serve others and have an impact, that's what keeps me going, for sure.
And maybe a little bit of baseball.
I'm pretty passionate about baseball.
Thank you so much, Clint. It's been so good to talk with you.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. This was fantastic. Thanks for letting me share a little bit about my story. I appreciate it.
Join the caring power of the United Way of Weld County community. Visit unitedway-weld.org, where you can learn more about our projects, find great volunteer opportunities, and donate. Special thanks to our cornerstone partners, our leadership givers, and the many individuals who make our work and this podcast possible. The music you heard today is by Alex Productions. I'm Diana Smith, your host. Thank you again for listening to the Weld Together podcast. And until next time, remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and remember, even a little good can go a very long way.